right, Mara, I am so excited to sit down and chat with you. I feel like we have serendipitously met one another and have way more in common than we
Way
knew.
more, for sure.
Yes. I mean, dealer backgrounds. I did not own one. I did work at one, though.
Yeah.
You owned one. So you can go into your background. I'd love to hear kind of where you started in the industry, how you got into doing what you're doing now with Workplace Studio and 25 North. And then I've got some fun questions we can talk about.
My background goes back to interior designer. So I started school in architecture and actually graduated with an interior design degree and NCIDQ certified and licensed and all those things. And really just helping clients and specializing in workplace strategy. And the idea was, how do we help people do their best work in the best locations, and how do we understand how aesthetics and environment really play into allowing people to do their best work. So that's really where I began and focused. And in my career, as you said, I owned an office furniture dealership and had lots of, great design clients, and they were actually international clients, which was really awesome, and started doing what I would call co-working for enterprise solutions, and not even knowing that there was a word co-working back then, which is kind of crazy to think about. And then when WeWork came out and all these other companies started doing what I was just like, wow, this is really interesting. Like, how are they doing it? What are they doing it? And so then created our own model of, instead of having 200 employees come to work in a workspace, what would it be like to have 200 independents in a workspace? And I really had the focus of close to home. I was mom, had 2 young daughters, career person, traveling all over. But what is close to home instead of having to go into downtown Chicago? I'm actually in a suburb of Chicago. What would it be like to have a great inspirational space to work close to where you live? And so that's kind of where 25 North came. But I didn't give up design, so we still have a fantastic interior design company, sister company, which is called Workplace Studio, like you said. And then 25 North Coworking is the brand that we use for the majority of our co-working spaces. And that's kind of how we do our operations and management. We do have some properties where we're powered by 25 North, or picked up, a landlord had a particular location and a brand and we picked that up. So we're really a management operating company, but also totally into the design piece too. So I wear 2 hats, and I hope I wear them both well.
Well, I definitely know that you do. And really, I think I get so much enjoyment out of talking to you about these things because I too have a design background and then worked at a dealership and have a passion for the design side and how it all comes together. But now in the role of director of workplace with a focus on our adaptive solutions and products, it's just kind of naturally led me down this path of researching and learning more about the co-working and flex industry. And you land squarely in both of those camps.
Right.
And I really do believe that good design can make or break a space. It can make or break how someone feels. It can make or break the success of an organization and the employees that arrive at that space. And that's literally what you guys exist to do. I mean, you exist to create beautiful spaces for your clients.
Right.
And then also for yourselves. And I had the pleasure of talking to your co-owner, Megan, earlier, and she was talking a little bit about that idea that, in Flex, no one's forced to come to your space other than the fact that they may need a place to sit down and work. So it's really a need that gets them there. Unlike at a workplace, it's there because that's your office and you have to go in.
You have to go there,
right?
for sure.
Maybe you're mandated, maybe you're not, but that's the only place you can go get work done. If you belong to a Flex space, you showed up because you needed a desk and some power and some Wi-Fi maybe in your backyard, and then you stayed because of the community and the design. And you guys have been very successful in growing 25 North. And I really, truly think a lot of it is because of that. You've been able to put the heart of the design behind the product.
Well, the best design is not just about, the aesthetic. It's very different designing for an enterprise user than a co-working space, because what we have to be really successful in is the operation side. And how do you design a workspace that seems seamless to someone coming in to get their work done, but you can operate with excellence, right? So you can create this culture, you create this environment, and people come back because of community. But how is it easy to serve the people who come to work there? So like position, where are your meeting rooms? How do we take care of them the best? There's back office things. How is that taken care of seamlessly without showing that to other people when they come in? How does your space look tour ready all the time? These are really important things that in a environment for enterprise users or small businesses or medium businesses, they're not really paying attention to that. We always have to have coffee ready. The cafe always has to look good and clean. So we're kind of like a hotel in the hospitality side.
Yeah.
And we're also about being an office, but more now, which, I hope we talk a little bit about, but one of the great success stories of co-working right now is that, after the pandemic and changes, people need a place to collaborate or a place to meet. And, there are certain things that are great in your home, but bringing a group of people together to either ideate or in a creation stage or, brainstorming type things or having a real one-on-one meeting or 5-on-1 or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
How do you create environments that suit that? Whether it's in a living room setting, whether it's in a boardroom setting, or what does that look like? So, but again, what is co-working different than just go getting a hotel meeting room or just going to an office and going to a meeting room? It's about the service, about the hospitality and the community that's there. So there's a lot of things you have to play with to understand. And, there's a revenue side. So what are people buying today? What do they need? How are they using it? Phone booths, like that'd be a huge thing right now. Like when Zoom started, that changed the dynamic of the open office. Creating acoustic solutions, that type of thing. So power everywhere, acoustics. So there's a lot to think about, right?
Yeah, I think you touched on something that I haven't talked with anybody about today in any of the conversations we've had. And I almost think it's like the root difference between co-working owner-operator style versus a corporate office. There are a lot of similarities between the two. A lot of design similarities. You're trying to get people to come in. But one of the primary differences is that a co-working space needs to be profitable. Like members are choosing to pay to belong there,
right,
versus a workplace where its profitability is more dictated by the people being able to be successful in the space that they're doing. But I mean, I don't pay to show up at the OFS office, right? It's just where I work. And then the office space is funded by the success of the sales team and the profitability of the company overall. With a co-working space, your success is dictated by people continuing to show up and wanting to be members.
Recurring revenue.
It
makes
is
them
more
stay,
like a hotel.
What makes them sticky, and it's member acquisition is a lot more difficult than member retention. Like, how do we keep people there? But they also have options. How are they going to pick you? And how do they decide the value of this space is worth what I'm going to pay? And then we also want them to be ambassadors. We want them to tell everybody about it. Tell your friends, bring your coworkers, come, and this is the choice that we are making, where they have a choice, right? And then they have to their pocketbook or their company's pocketbook, or justifying the expense to the company, obviously for reimbursement. If that's a case, like that's a really big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a question I want to ask you about that. In Atlanta, there's a huge headquarters for Insight Global. They do staffing.
Okay.
And they have this beautiful headquarters space, and they really recruit a lot of younger talent, definitely catering towards Gen Z. And it is a place you want to be. And without trying to offend anybody in the workplace side of things, I do feel like they're a little bit of an anomaly, because they have employees that stay after work to have a drink with their colleagues on the top floor. It feels like a luxury boutique hotel bar. Like, feels like a rooftop that you would have to make reservations to go to, but it's not. It's your corporate office and you work there.
And you'll be taking me there to show me.
And I will be taking you there.
Okay.
Yes, I will do that.
I want to see it.
Yes, I will definitely do that. It is designed to make the employees feel like they want to be there.
For sure.
But that is a little bit of an anomaly. Now, definitely workplace cultures are improving, and the design aesthetic is improving, and culture is becoming more and more relevant. But I think this is something that maybe Flex has done, dare I say, better or faster in adoption than the traditional workplace.
For sure.
So what are you seeing? Because you do, like you said, you wear two hats. So at Workplace Studio, you have the pleasure of working with a lot of Flex clients, but also there are some end users that are more on the corporate side of things. So I'll ask, like, what do you wish maybe the corporate workplace would take from Flex, or what advice would you have? Or you can kind of take that idea and go where you want to with it. But I'm interested to hear your take on that.
I think the biggest thing right now with corporations is they too are looking not to have like a receptionist at the front desk, or the admin team, but they're also looking for community management. So they're developing a culture and a reason for people to come to the office, right? Where you also have to have spaces for collisions. So you know what a collision is, obviously, but being like, where am I going to bump into someone, in another location? And I also think it's something for mentoring, whether they're leading or coaching or working with their teammates. Like, it's where multi-generations can be in the workforce together, where they can learn what another department might be doing. Or if you're just doing Zoom calls all day and you're in meetings, let's just say on your own, what a corporate environment needs to do is make places where you can run into people that you might not have a regular Zoom call or you might not be working with within your department. So what are those type of spaces like? So you really have to pay attention to that and make it purposeful. Wherein I would say, but prior to this in design, it was really designated department zones. Like, this was your department. Maybe the C-suite sat up here, marketing was over here, finance was over here. And maybe you had some team space where if you were on a project, you got together. But now purposely, people want you to know who's in your company, what is the culture of the company, how can I keep people coming here? When you go to talk to your clients, for example, you could talk about what your company is doing and the other people in it and like project work, just understanding that you're not just a solo independent over here, but you're part of this bigger group. I think that's really important.
Yes, I think you're spot on. I think the corporate workplaces that are doing that well are probably seeing some of the same success that flex spaces that are doing that well are seeing.
Right.
They're seeing their employees want to show up. The collision, I love that. I do know what that is, but I don't know that I've heard it worded exactly like that. And I think that's really powerful, the collision spaces, because, I mean, I'm based out of Atlanta and we're here in Huntingburg, Indiana today at our corporate office. And I mean, I'm sure y'all saw some of this as we were walking around.
You were hugging people. I haven't seen you in a while. Hey, nice to see you, right?
Yes, even the team behind the scenes here working with us behind the cameras and the mics and all that are people that I don't get to see nearly often enough. And it always feels exciting to run into them. And we have this kind of cultural hub in our corporate office that is the one place, very intentionally, like the one place to grab a coffee, the one place to grab a snack, because we want those collision moments.
The activities. So you have multiple activities in one space. You just didn't have seating for a cafe. You had a meeting area there. You had a nook where two people could sit. You had another area where a group of people could be learning. So it was definitely a place designed for collision, for example, but also collaboration and, you want a coffee, you want a water. It's one central area, right?
Yes.
Purposeful and well done. Very well done. Yes.
Thank you.
And the glass helps to see what other people are working on or what they're doing. I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, it feels, to use a Gen Z term, feels so vibey in there.
Vibey.
You see what other people are doing. Yeah. So on that same note, what are flex owner operators maybe doing wrong? Like, what is something that could be done maybe better, keeping that in mind?
I think everyone is really, really focused on occupancy and density and using every square foot possible as a revenue driver. And although I agree we have to do that, but we also have to have intentional spaces for a breakaway. Everyone does not, I say children have a 20-minute attention span, adults maybe have 40, but what are they going to do in between? Everyone isn't going to just stay in their own office. So where are they going to go? How do you make collisions? And you're building a community. They also have to have collisions too. So that's one really important thing. I also feel like they don't add as much flexibility as they could to the environment. Things change all the time. And having furniture that actually is on casters or can be relocated, and in a co-working environment, there's, you only maybe have two people on location. How are they moving furniture around by themselves? I think that's important. And power, where is the power? How are you designing in advance for change?
Yes.
So you have to obviously if you're moving into second generation or third generation space, you have a little bit to consider about how much you're putting into TI dollars, for example, but where is it the most valuable? For example, making sure you can plug in where you have a lounge area. Everyone wants to be on a laptop. Everyone has things to do. And also making places where they could do Zoom, but they don't have to go in a room and close the door necessarily, or they could be in a group working, collaborating. So still in flex, very important to do that. I also, phone booths, which you guys have great phone booths too, but
Thanks.
making sure that you do this really well. What's your background behind the Zoom camera? I think is really important to think about that. No one wants glass behind you where you're like so distracted by what's going on back there. So what statement piece do you have in design that's back there with acoustics or whatever that might be? People don't mind, noise as much as a visual distraction.
Totally.
Also paying attention to seated privacy or standing privacy. 50 inches is seated privacy, 61 inches would be standing privacy. Making dedicated zones for what is the purpose. If you want to be out in the open and you're good with that, what does that look like? If you want heads down space, where is that going to happen? So just paying attention to those kind of things.
Yeah, I think, and maybe saying doing it wrong is too harsh, but I think you outlined it so well. It's not necessarily that they're getting it wrong. It's just maybe forgetting or not having the insight to know what to do from the beginning. Maybe that's it. It's like things that are being left out of designs in the name of revenue or in the name of density,
right?
And forgetting to incorporate some of those meaningful moments or think through kind of how the human is going to experience the space when they show up. And
another thing is designing your space for tours. So not just how people work, but just think about if you're going to look at a floor plan when you're in the beginning stages, and what would your tour path be, and what do you talk about when you're on that path. So just understanding like, here's what we do in this space. Here's how we do this in this space. And then when you come back. So like if you can just map it out from floor plan to real life, I think that might help you understand where some adjustments could be or how to make it even better.
I love that idea even for more of the traditional workplace. I mean, thinking if you have a potential employee coming in, and I think we all know right now, attraction and retention is so huge, and you're trying to attract this young talent, per se. Maybe it's someone that's looking to move up in their career. Maybe it's an established person and you really want to attract them to your space. Thinking through how you tour them through your office is really smart. I have not thought of it like that.
And little
I think
things
that's
like
so great.
The bathroom door. What does it open onto? If you're in an office across the way and the door opens to the bathroom, do you want to know every time someone goes into the bathroom? I don't think so, or where that's off of. Or if you're walking down a corridor and there's a door right there, who wants an office that's right at the end of a corridor? So if you move the door to the other side and it's hidden, so just like little placement things about that, just really thinking through what offices would be, yes, you can put a box here, but then when you're walking through the space, what would be distracting to a desk that was there or an office that was there, right?
Yeah, I think there's a common misconception in the build out of a space that sometimes that elevated design or the those little details or the furniture that can withstand being moved all over the place for a long time to come is going to add to your budget and take away from your revenue. And I think we're kind of establishing like that is not
true.
That is not true. That is just
right.
I think there's the kind of the quick dismissal sometimes of ideas because it's like, well, that sounds expensive. I just don't even think we can do that. And I hope to slowly, with interviews just like this, to slowly kind of debunk some of those myths, right?
Hopefully.
I mean, no mythbuster over here, but I do think there's an opportunity to like, hey, flexible doesn't mean more expensive, or
not at all.
Relocating the bathroom door, not expensive and very worth your time.
Yeah.
Well, anything I didn't ask you that you want to discuss, or any last suggestions you would have for those that are maybe designing their space, or anything you'd love to see in the future of Flex? Kind of open to you, but I'd love to hear any last thought you have while we wrap up.
Yeah, I just really think that everyone needs to think about each and every space and how it will change over time. If you're in a lease, 5 years, 10 years, that's a long time from now. And just really think about multifunction, multi-purpose, and furniture that allows you to do that. I think that's the key piece, is what kind of furniture are you putting in the space to make adds, moves, changes, one person, 4 people, and really thinking about whether if you have a side table, let's say, or is it a conference table, or is it, actually yesterday I saw a great product. So I love this one table that you have that's an occasional table that has a lift in it, just like a standing desk. So you have chairs around it, so you can either work at a work table, or it's more like a coffee table, which is fantastic because you could change the mood on like throughout the day versus just, coming in and changing tables outright. Like that's just what I mean.
Yeah. Plan
Being
for
adaptable, flexible, and know things will change.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Mara. I think everybody has a lot to learn from you, including myself. So I'm
thank
very
you.
humbled and grateful for your time and really appreciate you.
Appreciate that. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks.